Good evening, everyone. I would like to call the meeting to order. Welcome to the Housing Commission's May 6th special Housing Commission meeting. This is a hybrid meeting with the Housing Commission members, city staff, and members of the public participating at Bellhaven Community Center and via Zoom. I'll call the meeting to order at 6:31 p.m. And for roll call, I'd like to introduce staff and Housing Commissioner members present. For staff, we have Housing Manager Tim Wong and Management Analyst Ariana Milton. And as for Commissioner roll call, let's start with Vice Chair Beely.
Present.
All right, and thank you. I do know that we have a hard stop for Vice Chair Beely, so just noting that on the record here for 7:45 p.m. Moving on to Housing Commissioner Chapa.
Present.
And Commissioner Dumont. And Commissioner Cranen.
I'm here.
All right. And Commissioner Arsler.
Here, present.
And myself, Chair Schweitzer. I'm attending remote in Riverside for a work conference. And Commissioner Wong is absent due to an illness. So let's move on to Ariana. Would you please provide some instructions to housing commissioners as well as members of the public on how the meeting will proceed?
Sure. Thank you, Chair Schweitzer and members of the Housing Commission. Welcome everyone to the May 6th special meeting of the Housing Commission, and thank you for attending. Staff will engage cameras and microphones to make presentations and respond to the members of the Housing Commission. For members of the public who are in attendance and wish to provide public comments on an item on tonight's agenda, after the chair calls for public comments on the item you wish to speak on, please engage the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen for virtual participants. For those who are calling in from a landline or a cell phone, please press *9. And for those in person, please complete a speaker card and bring it to me directly. That concludes the instructions, and I return the meeting to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Well, we can move on to public comment. So under public comment, the public may address the Housing Commission on any subject that's not listed on the agenda. Each speaker may address the Housing Commission for a limit of 3 minutes. You're not required to provide your name or city of residence, but it is helpful to do so. The Housing Commission cannot act on items not listed on the agenda, so therefore the Housing Commission can't respond to non-agenda items brought up during public comment other than to provide, say, general information. And with that, do we have any public comment?
So I don't see any public comments online. However, we may have a public comment. No? Okay. A little premature. So no public comment at this time.
Okay. Well, we can move along to some regular business here. Under regular business, the Housing Commission receives informational presentations in addition to considering policy matters and administrative actions. So for our first item, D1, we are to approve the Housing Commission meeting minutes for the April 1st, 2026 meeting. And I can open that item up for public comment. Do you have any public comment for the April 1st meeting minutes?
We do not have any public comments online or in person at this time.
Well, we can bring things back to the commission. If there's any spelling errors, grammatical errors, or things that commissioners would like to bring up at this time, now would be appropriate. I can also entertain a motion to approve the minutes as well.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Great. So it looks like we have a motion by Chair. No, he, yeah, no, you're fine. So we have a motion by Chair Schweitzer and a second by Commissioner Osler to approve the Housing Commission meeting minutes for April 1st, 2026. I will now do a roll call vote. Vice Chair Beely,
Yes.
Commissioner Chapa,
Yes.
Commissioner Dumont,
Yes.
Commissioner Cranen,
Yes.
Commissioner Osler,
Yes.
and Chair Schweitzer.
Yes.
Great. The motion passes 6-0 with one absence.
All right. Well, moving along to item D2. It is to review and recommend approval of the City of Menlo Park's anti-displacement plan. Ariana will give the presentation, so the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Schweitzer. I'm going to go ahead and start everything. Okay, good evening, Housing Commissioners, staff, and members of the public. Tonight, I will be providing an overview of Agenda Item D2, the Anti-Displacement Plan. So tonight, staff recommends that the Housing Commission review and recommend approval of the City of Menlo Park's Anti-Displacement Plan. So just as a reminder, displacement occurs when people need to relocate from their homes or neighborhoods due to factors that are oftentimes out of their control. And types of displacement can include physical displacement, which is seen through eviction, economic displacement, which is seen through like rising housing costs or rent, and cultural displacement, which can be seen through gentrification. So just to give some information about how and from what sources the anti-displacement plan came from. So the need for an anti-displacement plan came from the programs in both the city's housing element and environmental justice element. Program H2E of the housing element requires that the anti-displacement plan include a specific focus on the Belhaven neighborhood, while programs EJ 5.G and EJ 5.H require support for legal counsel for tenants facing eviction and support for underserved communities. So as far as the timeline for this goes, the initial research for the plan strategies began in 2024, and that included having 2 community events right here at the Belhaven Community Campus, one in English and one in Spanish, to ask the community to prioritize the strategies. In 2025, the city also launched a web page just to be able to keep track of the city's progress on the displacement plan. And then a citywide survey was also circulated. Interviews were also conducted with experts and community stakeholders. And we also received feedback from both the Housing Commission and the City Council last year as well. And then the draft plan was completed this year. So as far as the original Housing Commission feedback, this draft plan was brought towards them back on September 3rd of last year, and the Commission was supportive of the draft plan's recommendations and in support of exploring additional strategies, which included creating a rental registry and expanding relocation assistance. The City Council also reviewed the draft plan during their study session on September 9th. And overall, the Council was very supportive of the draft plan's recommendations. They also supported additional strategies like a rent registry, extending relocation assistance, and the development of a workforce development program. And lastly, just recently, the Planning Commission was given a presentation on the anti-displacement draft plan. The item was only a presentation and no formal action was taken. However, the Commission was supportive of staff's recommendations. And just as a highlight, they expressed some interest in folding in electrification education into the current draft's recommendations. And they also supported easier access to education about tenants' rights. So there are anti-displacement efforts in place on the state and local level. So just to give a high-level overview of the efforts on the state level, that can be found in AB 1482, which is also known as the California Tenant Protection Act. That's a state mandate that includes protections for just cause evictions and rent stabilization. And then in addition, we have the Housing Accountability Act, also known as SB 330, and that helps expedite the processing of housing projects as long as they're code compliant and that they meet like objective standard requirements. So on the local level, the City of Menlo Park has several different anti-displacement efforts in place. In 2019, the city adopted a tenant relocation assistance ordinance, and that requires landlords to pay up to 3 months of tenant relocation assistance to their tenants, who must leave their units through a no-fault eviction. In addition, the city's 12-month lease ordinance requires that all residential tenants be offered a 12-month lease for their unit. Menlo Park also has been active in its affordable housing production through inclusionary zoning and our NOFA process. And then also in 2020 and 2019, the city established a rental assistance program through Samaritan House, and that kind of morphed into more of a housing assistance program during the pandemic. And then lastly, the city has provided funding for a housing preservation program with Habitat for Humanity and Rebuilding Together, which aims at making critical repairs for low-income households in Belhaven. So to get into the anti-displacement plan framework, so there were 23 suggested strategies that were reviewed, and understanding that at this time, not all 23 strategies can be implemented, staff had to figure out a way to reduce the number of strategies and filter them into a plan that was manageable. And so one way we did this was to organize the strategies using the 4 pillars or the 4 Ps. The 4 Ps or 4 pillars framework is used to combat displacement and encourage cities to produce affordable housing, preserve existing affordable housing, protect tenants, and promote prosperity through financial empowerment for all. In the anti-displacement draft, all strategies are, they're all categorized by their applicable pillar. I won't be going over each of these 23 strategies in their entirety during this presentation, but they can all be found on the strategy table of the anti-displacement plan, and that starts on page D-2.50 of tonight's packet. So to get into the first pillar, which would be production, again, that revolves around encouraging the creation of affordable housing. This includes increasing production of affordable housing and exploring potential changes to the city's BMR requirements. Next, we have protection, which is where the majority of our strategies are housed in. They focus on tenant protections, and they range from expanding existing city ordinances to creating new ordinances, like a new tenant anti-harassment ordinance, to eviction monitoring, to a rental registry. They have a wide range. Due to these strategies having like such a direct possibility of preventing immediate displacement, it was important that staff focused on this pillar. So next we have preservation. The preservation pillar focuses on ways that the city can preserve its existing affordable housing through strategies like a home repair renovation program, utilizing COPA-TOPA, and prioritizing the purchase and preservation of existing housing. And lastly, we have prosperity. And the prosperity pillar focuses on creating future pathways for city residents so that they can afford to stay in place. And strategies in this pillar focus on like education opportunities through financial planning, down payment assistance, and creating like a workforce development program. So the city used a 3-prong approach or methodology to creating the plan and prioritizing all 23 strategies. So first, we solicited community feedback. That was incredibly important. We did that through the community meetings, one in Spanish, one in English, right here at Belhaven. We created the citywide survey. and that included asking a series of different questions to homeowners, renters, and people who might be experiencing being unhoused right now, or those without permanent housing. Staff also conducted a series of interviews with housing experts and professionals and stakeholders in the Belhaven neighborhood to get their informed opinions as well. And lastly, we researched any information on anti-displacement best practices to help support our own recommendations. So to get into the meat, these are our recommended strategies. Altogether, staff came up with 7 of them, and the majority of staff's recommendations do focus on the protection pillar to provide more immediate assistance to tenants and those who are most vulnerable to displacement. All of these strategies are also listed in order of priority. So I'll go over them one by one. So the first strategy that we are recommending is to create a rental assistance program. According to the study, evictions in the 9-county Bay Area, 85% of eviction cases are due to late or non-payment of rent. This study is referenced in Appendix C of our anti-displacement plan. By providing tenants with rental assistance, it may help actually prevent the evictions before they happen, or it could possibly resolve an ongoing eviction in progress. Funds for the creation of a rental assistance program and legal assistance program were also granted to the city by MTC in a grant totaling $250,000. The next recommendation is to establish a legal assistance program. Another statistic in the same study found that 90% of property owners had access to legal representation, while about 5% of tenants did in eviction cases. That's a huge difference. Establishing a legal assistance program that provides counseling or representation in court has shown that tenants have a higher chance of success in fighting their evictions and could potentially lower the number of evictions in the city. And next, staff recommends expanding the just cause eviction ordinance in a multi-part process. So this would include extending AB 1482 protections past its current expiration date, which is set at 2030. Extending just cause eviction protections to single-family dwellings. Right now, single-family dwellings are not protected under the existing state law. And this could definitely positively impact the Belhaven neighborhood because the majority of rentals there are single-family homes. We would also require landlords to submit eviction notices to the city and establish tenant protections to kick in on the first day of initial move-in date or of a tenant's tenancy instead of beginning 1 year of them occupying the unit. So it would start from day 1 as opposed to 1 year. And lastly, this recommendation would expand the tenant relocation assistance requirements to 4 months to better ensure that tenants are able to cover any unforeseen costs, moving expenses, security deposits to decrease the possibility of further displacement. Next, we have implementing an anti-harassment ordinance. So the city of Menlo Park does not currently have an anti-harassment ordinance in place. Creating an ordinance like this would provide protection against intimidation or abusive behavior from landlords who may be forcing their tenants to vacate their unit. Next, staff recommends expanding the city's preservation program. This could be implemented by revising the conditions of the city's NOFA, which is known as Notice of Funding Agreement, and prioritizing the rehabilitation of existing multifamily units and single-family homes. It's good to note that right now, as of now, no ordinance would be needed to facilitate this. Next, we recommend creating a rental registry. Establishing a rental registry could provide a better understanding of market conditions, and it would be vital if the city wishes to ever create a rent stabilization program in the future. It can also be used to track relocation assistance requirements and monitor vacancy rates. And lastly, staff recommends creating a workforce development program. This could be really beneficial as a pathway to financial independence through education, so things like apprenticeships, internships, and workshops. So getting into next steps, the finalized plan will be presented to the City Council for consideration on May 19th. And, as if all goes according to plan, then both the rental assistance and the legal assistance programs will also then need to be implemented in the fall of this year as per the grant guidelines. And I just want to acknowledge to the commission that tonight you've just received the unformatted version of the anti-displacement plan tonight. Formatting takes like a significant amount of time. So the fully formatted version of the plan will be ready to present at City Council later this month. But we just wanted to give you guys kind of like a little sneak peek. So we put the first 2 pages of the formatted plan up here. So you've got your colors, your graphics, all that. Once again, circling back to tonight's recommendation, we recommend that the Housing Commission review and recommend approval of the City of Menlo Park's anti-displacement plan. And for reference, we have the 7 strategies here listed. In addition to both Tim and I, we also have our consultant from HART, Leslie, here virtually to help assist to answer any questions after the presentation. We look forward to your discussion. And that will conclude my presentation. I will now return the meeting to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation, Ariana. This item's open for public comment. So do we have any public comment for item D2?
Yes, it looks like we have some virtual comments and we may have some in person as well. But we'll start off with the in-person comments, okay? So got a couple of cards here. So first we have Pam Jones, if you'd like to come up to the podium microphone.
Good evening, Pam Jones. I'm a resident of the Belhaven neighborhood, Menlo Park, longtime resident. I belong to a number of organizations, sit on a number of boards. I'm here speaking for myself. I wish to start out by thanking the staff, particularly for the breadth and depth of this report. It gave a history of Belhaven, which has been hard to capture and is very important to really understand who we are and what we are trying to express when we are always complaining about something. Well, not all of us, but I know I do. And I hope that this document is one that is read, and I've recommended it to other people if they want to know more information, but I hope that it is well publicized so people will look at it because it is so well documented. And I know that times when I'm speaking about Belhaven, there are people that the only thing they're interested in is documentation because they don't find lived experiences as being valuable. With that being said, that I do support the 7 pillars. I look forward to the recommendation, the timeline for implementation. And I do feel that the rental registry needs to be kind of moved up because if we don't know what we have and what we're using, that what's available, it makes excuse me, a little more difficult to try and implement programs around that. So again, I want to thank staff. Really appreciate the work that you did. And also thank you and welcome you to Belhaven. And hope that you come over here frequently, especially when it's this beautiful evening as it is. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Okay, next up in person, we have Cade Kennedy.
Yes, hello, commissioners. Nice to meet you all. My name is Cade Kennedy. I'm the Senior Director of Programs with Climate Resilient Communities. I do a lot of environmental justice work here in the Belhaven neighborhood, and I've been working a lot with both the staff and residents on the creation of the anti-displacement strategy. I would just like to, again, situate some context. Throughout the environmental justice element process, more than 1,800 Belhaven residents participated and emphasized the anti-displacement strategy as their #1 top priority for the community. There is overwhelming support and interest in keeping the community intact, and folks see that as key to environmental justice, right? If you're displaced from your home, you very rarely end up in a cleaner, less polluted environment. That's a very unidirectional relationship. So keeping folks housed is one of the best ways that we can promote environmental justice throughout the city. I would also like to thank staff for their great work on assembling this plan. I would encourage folks, to continue to push for moving with speed on our first strategy there, right? 85% of evictions are due to non-payment of rent, and a rental assistance program is a great way to keep families housed, to make sure that landlords are made whole as well, and give folks the kind of stopgap they need to stay in their home, get back on their feet, and weather that big disaster, right? I think I definitely speaking for myself, but I'm sure many of us in this room, we are all one missed paycheck away from being in a very similar position, not being able to make rent. So that's the number one strategy for a reason. It can do a lot of great good for folks. I would also encourage both staff and commission to push for, implementing with speed both strategy 2 and 3, right? It's really important that with a right to legal counsel, we also have the rights to defend, right? So by expanding our just cause eviction protections, we give lawyers and tenants a better leg to stand on when it comes to preventing these illegal evictions. That's super key. I think the other thing is that I'm very interested in strategies 4 through 7. I think that a phased implementation makes sense. I think there are 16 other strategies that are not being advanced at this time. I think that, it makes sense to prioritize the work. We can't do everything at once. And I think the strategies that have been elevated reflect the strategies that can produce the greatest amount of good. But I think that just because we are not moving with the same urgency on the other 16 strategies doesn't mean that they should fall by the wayside. We need a full court press when it comes to preventing displacement in the Belhaven community, and implementing all of the strategies is the best way to do that. So thank you to staff. Thank you, Commission.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anyone in person that has a comment or would like to make a comment? Nope. Going once, going twice. Okay, great. So we're going to pivot over to the virtual commenters now. So give me 1 second. Okay, so up first for the virtual commenters is going to be Angela. I will give you the heads up when to speak. Hold on. Okay, Angela, go ahead.
Thank you. This is Angela Evans. I'm a director at Menlo Spark and a Menlo Park resident. We're a climate nonprofit that incorporates housing equity deeply into our work. Thank you so much, staff, for your presentation and your work here. I applaud that work. We're so grateful these ordinances are going forward. I agree with both of the in-person commenters who preceded me, I should say. Menlo Spark has made a few additional recommendations to staff, and we've informed them about that, and I've been able to meet with some of you individually at the commission. And it fits with the city's environmental justice element, as well as fits very well into the staff's recommendations 3 and 4. And I hope that the Housing Commission tonight can support these recommendations to be included in the final plan to council on the 19th. First, some background. We're in the middle of a major policy shift in our city and region, where soon gas appliances inside homes are going, when they break, they're going to have to be replaced with zero pollution heat pump electric versions. And in fact, I spent the greater part of my day in San Francisco at the Air District regarding a policy that will be Bay Area wide that will require the replacement of gas water heaters when they die with zero nitrogen dioxide versions. So this stuff's coming. We want to get ahead of it. The focus is on furnaces and water heaters. And the great news is that electrification does yield enormous benefits for tenants, climate, public health, typically utility bill savings, especially with the water heaters. There are, however, some incremental increases in costs at installation until the heat pump market fully matures. And many climate and justice advocates, including us, are calling on cities to make sure that renters are not inadvertently impacted in the form of cost pass-throughs or displacement because of those. So I'm going to breeze through the 4 recommendations that I sent around individually to all the commissioners. One is to clearly reference and reiterate in ordinance text the portions of state law that already require landlords to keep home and hot water heating functioning and pay for the replacements when they break. Number 2, codify language that explains that replacements of gas appliances with electric versions, which usually takes about 1 to 2 days for water heaters and 2 to 3 days for heating, do not come anywhere close to meeting the state's definition of, quote, substantial remodel, which is legally defined as 30 plus days, and therefore cannot and should not be used as pretext for just cause evictions. This fits into staff report recommendation number 3. Our third recommendation is please place guardrails on subsidized city programs, such as the city's home upgrade program that ensures landlords cannot pass through the value of their subsidies onto tenants. And number 4, for the anti-harassment ordinance, please include language that mandated gas to electric appliance rules that landlords use to either evict or threaten to evict, or increase costs or threaten to increase costs to tenants shall be defined as harassment under that ordinance. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you for your comment. So we'll move on to the next person. That's going to be Karen Grove. Give me 1 second, Karen. Okay, go ahead.
Good evening. I'm Karen Grove, a Menlo Park resident, former housing commissioner. So this is all near and dear to my heart. And I'm also the housing lead for Menlo Together, and we submitted a letter about tenant protection. So I'm really glad to see these things being worked on and becoming reality. Really, the timeliness is so important. Every week and month that we don't have these protections in place, we are losing valued members of our community. So I just want to urge really focus on getting to the result for the people. And to that end, you mentioned separating the just cause policies into 2. One would be extending the protections of the Tenant Protection Act of 2019 beyond 2030. And the other would be extending the protections to single family homes, which the TPA of 2019 does not do. So to the extent that every time we delay protection, people are lost, I would absolutely focus on extending the protections to single family homes. And maybe even then moving on to the anti-harassment ordinance, because it is 2026. And before we know it, it'll be 2030. But I think we can get a lot done that will actually make a difference in people's lives between now and 2029. So that's one suggestion. And then the other thing I wanted to comment on is I love the preservation program. I was on the Housing Commission when we funded Habitat for Humanity, or recommended funding to do that work. But any increase, if you prioritize preservation, you will deprioritize, for the amount of funds that we have, production and protections. And we have a very big production plan in downtown Menlo Park for housing that will be affordable to all incomes and abilities. And so I'd like us to not, to make sure that we remember when we prioritize one thing, we are deprioritizing other things. And tenant protections like rental assistance keeps people in their home and is the most cost-effective way of preventing eviction. So just wanted to make that comment. And I support the electrification recommendations that Angela made, and I thank her for them. And thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. I believe we have one other person that would like to make a comment. That's going to be Lynn Dan Doe. I'm going to go ahead and promote you now. Go ahead, Lynn.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Lynn Dan Doe. I'm a D3 Menlo Park resident. I agree with the previous comments by Pam, Cade, and Karen, and appreciate staff's work on this issue. In addition to the staff recommendations, I support Menlo Sparks' proposed additions to the city's anti-displacement strategy as laid out so well by Angela Evans. These additions are to ensure specific protections for tenants in buildings undergoing electrification, which is so important to creating safer homes, reducing pollution exposure, and improving air quality, which are all key goals in the environmental justice element. I appreciate Menlo Sparks' timely work to get the right tenant protections in place as important local and regional policies roll out. So please do include them. And I'm hopeful that this can be integrated into the strategy being proposed and will not at all slow down staff's work on this very important issue. Thank you.
Great, thank you for your comment. And one last time for virtual commenters. Okay, I believe that will end public comments for this item.
All right. Well, thank you all for providing public comment and being engaged on this timely issue here. Perhaps we have some solutions in play as this advances to council for its approval. I'd like to just open it up to the Housing Commission for some clarifying questions or discussion on the item.
Yeah, I have a question, I guess, about the MTC bonds that we have for the legal and rental assistance programs. I know we discussed this last time, but can you talk a little more about the structure of that? I believe the city has to match funds. Is that correct?
Sorry. Technical. Yes, the city received 250,000 to implement a rent assistance program and a legal assistance program. As part of that, to be in compliance policy, the city must also pledge 300,000 for each of those programs, so a total of 600,000 for that program.
Hi, if you have questions, now is the time.
Okay, one more question on that topic. That's over how many years, Tim?
Over 4 years per the MTC agreement. 300,000 for over 4 years.
Is Commissioner Dumont's microphone on?
Supposed to be on. Okay, sorry. Yeah. So the request is for, the initial request was for mandatory notice. Robust tenant education, and improved multilingual outreach, and somewhere, because I wasn't sure where. It just seems like getting the word out to people, and this was requested by Haven residents and the environmental justice element, and the topics came up a lot, but I wasn't seeing it explicitly.
In regards to, for example, multilingual The city is already pursuing primarily in Spanish, but certain city council meetings have had live interpretation services for the meetings. So in addition, that certain documents are being also translated into Spanish. And so the city is that direction with the multilingual effort. And in regards to tenant education, and that's something we are looking at. And regardless of what strategy is recommended or implemented, though that education about what strategy is being implemented, essential part of the process. In other words, to let everyone know, whether it be a tenant anti-harassment or just cause eviction, that type of education will be emphasized, in addition to the existing tenant protections that we may have. And CDD potentially partner with Project Sentinel to talk about fair housing tenant rights as that type of outreach in addition. Give me, I think you mentioned a third one.
Well, it's not something that I've seen in other cities, a mandatory notice to tenants at the time that that's at the time of the rent or lease agreement, that the tenants are given a notice of their rights. I'm just, I mean, I really feel that priority should be given to people know what the rights are now, and as we develop more protections to ensure that folks understand what their rights are and what the improvements are. But I feel like what I've seen in here is like a lot of people don't in the report, the proposal is a lot of people don't know what their rights are now. Is a source of it leads to people self-displacement in a way because they don't know what they're entitled to, what their rights are now. I'm just thinking about the outreach on that. I had two other things, if it's okay to bring those up now. One was, I noticed there was a discussion or in here somewhere was about sources of funding for the programs. And I think the response in here was that the staff is always looking for sources of funding. Is that kind of that? Is that it, or is there something more? Something coming besides keeping on the lookout for grants and things? So that was one of my. Staff is not aware of any dedicated tenant protection or anti-displacement funding versus such as like affordable housing production sources. There are always sources to build affordable housing, but when it comes to, I think that gets pretty specific, such as this MTC grant that the city was awarded. Had to apply. And so that is what is meant by consistent. When these funding sources or these grants will become available. I guess I'm also concerned about the, the implementation timeline. I appreciated the comment about when will we see a timeline? I wasn't sure if you had an answer for that.
In terms of timelines, the first two recommendations should be implemented by fall of 2026. And then the third, the just cause eviction, is anticipated to follow after that. In the plan itself, it says that these recommendations are seen to be implemented over the next 2 or 3 years, probably over the next 3 years. But a lot of that depends on city priorities, staff bandwidth, as staff is already pursuing a Nexus study to help modify the city's BMR requirements. We'll be working on the assistance programs. So part of that staff bandwidth also.
If I may. I did read the report, and thank you so much to staff for putting it together. I do agree with Menlo Sparks' recommendation for the detail, specifically to something that's occurring now before we have implemented. So we are playing catch up. But in the context of the bigger picture, we are playing catch up and emphasize the timeline. When I read the report, I heard three things that still have me unclear. I heard that the people that we identify require the help not have the education to understand what help is being offered. And then I heard that the people we managed to engage in this process disinterested what was being recommended. It was not. Finally, I heard the city does not have the resources currently to. What I heard, of course, we all only you're here as much as we know. But what I see is an opportunity, clearly, and I kind of rubbed me the wrong way, I want to say. But the two first pillars, I can see already implementing. But the last two, I feel should. I hear you mentioned partnering with Sentinel, and if it's the same heart that I've been reading about in the peninsula, perhaps consider them too, because they have a strong play in TOPA and COPA, and if we can partner with them to retroactively, because we're playing, there's a period in one of the graphs that showed when most of the displacement occurred. So if people were to, somebody gained. So I think it's an opportunity for proactive by the city. We're taking a little late action, but it doesn't mean it's gotten away from us. We can correct it going forward. What we're doing. Appears to me we are playing catch up.
Yes, this is a slightly more general comment. I did want to say I appreciated the thoroughness of the report. I thought that the conclusions about what pillars we need to focus on generally make a lot of sense, and the ordering does. I will echo, we heard a public comment, and I agree as well that the rental registry, I think, should be a high priority. I struggle, I mean, they're all high priorities, so I struggle to know exactly where to place it, but I do think that one thing this report emphasized for me is that we we have a problem, and seeking out the data to understand exactly how much of a problem we have is challenging. I think even what's there is shocking and deserves, you know, our fastest possible response. And I appreciate the demands on staff's time, and I think we should proceed, you know, as quickly as possible with all of these efforts that we can. So I appreciate the report. Thank you.
I just would like to echo some of my other commissioners' comments here. Paying, you know, attention to, say, the timeline, understanding as um, my profession as a planner working for another jurisdiction. I can definitely understand the amount of staff work and time needed to develop such programs such as a rental registry, and understanding, you know, what we would want to have versus what is actually possible on certain timelines is often two different things. And I think that you know, the plan that we have before us provides a realistic option. There's always an opportunity to have things completed before set deadlines. So just because a deadline's set doesn't necessarily mean it's going to take the full amount of time to reach that. So just wanting to provide that context here, but definitely want to applaud staff for the work and time that has gone into this since our last meeting in September. And until now, I think, you know, our recommendations from that September meeting were incorporated. And it's great to see that and seeing this document evolve as we see it again. And on that same vein, definitely in support of the 4 recommendations that Menlo Spark had provided, trying to have a better intersection, if you will, to our environmental justice element, and kind of shoring up some of the language in these documents to address issues that are ongoing and will be as this document ages. And who knows, maybe in the next 30 years, the language that we recommend today will perhaps be applicable or perhaps not. But if we're able to kind of get ahead of that and think ahead and incorporate some of these items, I think it will provide some more protections for our renters and our community. So
I'll make a couple quick comments. I think when we first saw this, it was we saw 23 different strategies, and that's a lot. Feels much better to have it boiled down to 7. So thank you, staff, and thank you for prioritizing and kind of filling out those proposals. 2 other things. Number one, I think that, you know, I look at the Spark proposal for the 4 items, and I say to myself, how can we not do that? Because the forced change is coming, and it's going to impact us through housing one way or another, and we have to protect the people who could be impacted by those. And then the last thing is, you know, to Karen's point, I think that maybe doing 3 fast and well is probably in some ways more important than doing even 7, but that's just my nature. I do think as a data guy that the rental registry is also really important, but I'll take the first 3 fast if that's what it takes. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I wanted to second Commissioner Cranen and Commissioner Schweitzer's comment, and I guess add that I do agree that the rental registry the rental assistance and legal assistance programs for me are the highest priorities. They seem like they're the clearest path to implementation. They obviously have the timeline associated with the grant. I think it does make sense to focus on those first. I just hope we'll be able to fast follow on the rest. And I also wanted to just mention, I am also supportive of Menlo Spark's proposals. I think they're great things to keep in mind as we proceed through this process.
well, are there any other commissioner comments on this item?
That I am in agreement with fellow commissioners, particularly on the Menlo Spark points and also the rental registry. I think it's very important for us to have the information to ground us in the problem and how to solve it. And definitely agree with the getting our boulders, if you will, done, and then the rocks and the sand can follow. So definitely in agreement on that strategy.
Seeing kind of a little bit of a straw poll here just from other commissioner comments. I'm happy to maybe take a stab at a motion here that could kind of capture some of these items. So with that, I would recommend that the commission recommend approval, should I say, of staff's recommendation with the following 4 inclusions. That would be to reference existing California law in the ordinance text on habitability maintenance for heat and hot water. Also include, or should I say, prevent misuse of substantial remodel eviction clause for the electrification upgrades to units. Also place an explicit pass-through cost guardrails on subsidized electrification work, and add to the anti-harassment ordinance.
I'm supportive of that motion and I'll second it, I guess, to whatever extent those are modifications we can make. But yeah, I also agree with this report. I'm happy to approve it.
Sorry, one second, just conferring for a moment.
So to be clear, the chair made a motion to accept staff's recommendation, including the 4 Spark comments or suggestions, if you from their public comments, to fold into our recommendation to at least consider those Menlo Spark suggestions or something along those lines. Sorry, I'm not good at
Something similar to the planning
Correct.
commission.
Yeah, I think that would be maybe for some more clarifying language, recommend staff's approval of staff's recommendation with the inclusion to consider the following 4 items. So
Confirming that I will second that as my understanding as well.
Awesome. Okay, great. So it looks like we have a motion by Chair Schweitzer and a second by Commissioner Osler to recommend approval of the City of Menlo Park anti-displacement plan to City Council, including the considerations brought forward by Menlo Spark as suggestions to fold into the existing plan. I will now go ahead and do a roll call vote. Vice Chair Beely,
Yes.
Commissioner Chapa,
I'm still a little uncomfortable. Is it possible to abstain, or is it a yea or nay?
I think you can do either or. Yeah, you can abstain if you'd like.
I abstain.
Okay, no worries. Commissioner Dumont? Yes. Commissioner Cranen?
Yes.
Commissioner Osler?
Yes.
Chair Schweitzer?
yes.
And Commissioner Wong is absent. So that is going to be the motion passing 5 with 1 abstaining and 1 absence.
All right. Well, moving right along to item D3, the selection of chair and vice chair, and just wanting to add a little time check here. It is 7:30, trying to recognize the 7:45 hard stop for one of our commissioners. So with item D3, management analyst Ariana Milton will give a brief introduction to the item.
Yes, thanks, Chair Schweitzer. This is going to be very brief. So basically, every May, per the City Council Policy CC-24-004, the chair and vice chair shall be selected in May of each year by a majority of their members and shall serve for 1 year or until the successors are selected. Each commission shall annually rotate its chair and vice chair. So it is May, it is now time to do so. I will say that this commission being whole, you all are quite new still, maybe except for the exception of Commissioner Bealey. So no one yet has held any of these seats yet outside of Vice Chair Bealey and Chair Schweitzer. So now anyone outside of those two people is eligible to become chair and vice chair. And that's the end of my explanation.
Just checking my understanding. The primary understanding or primary responsibility is reading the structure of the meeting and kind of guiding general order.
Yeah, it's definitely conducting the meeting as it goes. Of course, you'll have copies of chair notes for the chair. If the chair is unable to chair the meeting, then that responsibility then falls upon the vice chair. But other than that, that's really what it boils down to.
I'm not clear on the process for, yeah.
We don't need anyone to be nominated per se. If someone is interested, they just, make their intention known that they would like to be vice chair or chair. If another person ends up wanting to occupy that same seat, then that might require additional discussion. But for the most part, it's just making your intention known and going forward from that.
I guess I suppose I'm potentially interested. I have no preference between chair or vice chair, and I'm perfectly fine if other people have stronger feelings.
Okay, and also just as a heads up, Vice Chair Bealey, if you were interested in being chair, then you could. Chair Schweitzer, if you were interested in being vice chair, you could, because neither of you have served in those capacities yet. So just want to make that clear too.
Thank you for the clarity. Well, from what I can see on the camera here, I don't see anyone else making other comments. I'm happy to serve in capacity of the vice chair if there's no desire. So.
Okay, that's wonderful. So as far as motions go, we'll do the chair first, and then we'll do the vice chair after that. So it sounds like Commissioner Osler, you were interested.
Sure. Yes.
Okay, great. So then it'll be just like a normal motion. So we'll need a motion and a second to move forward.
Okay, I guess I will make a motion for myself to be chair.
Great. Okay, so it looks like we have a motion by Commissioner Osler and a second by Commissioner Chapa to select Commissioner Osler as chair of the Housing Commission. I will now do a roll call vote. Vice Chair Bealey.
Yes.
Commissioner Chapa.
Yes.
Commissioner Dumont.
Yes.
Commissioner Cranen.
Yes.
Commissioner Osler.
Yes.
Chair Schweitzer.
Yes.
And Commissioner Wong is absent. So the motion passes 6-0 with one absent. Congratulations, Commissioner Osler. So now we'll just go ahead and move on to Vice Chair. And it sounds like now I have to call you Commissioner, Commissioner Schweitzer has volunteered or put his hat in the ring for Vice Chair. We can move forward with a motion in a second.
I'll make a motion for Commissioner Schweitzer as the Vice Chair.
I'm happy to second that.
Okay, it looks like we have a motion by Commissioner Cranen and a second by Chair Osler to select Commissioner Schweitzer as Vice Chair of the Housing Commission. I will now do a roll call vote. Commissioner Beely,
Yes.
Commissioner Chapa,
Yes.
Commissioner Dumont,
Yes.
Commissioner Cranen,
Yes.
Chair Osler,
Yes.
Commissioner Schweitzer,
Yes.
and Commissioner Wong is absent. So the motion passes 6-0 with one absence for selection of Commissioner Schweitzer as the Vice Chair of the Housing Commission. Congratulations. Okay. I'll give, yeah. So Commissioner Osler, or Chair Osler, we're gonna give you the chair notes so you can continue the meeting.
All right, thank you. Let's see. Okay, we'll move on to reports and announcements and commissioner updates. Do we have any individual commissioner updates? All right, seeing one, we'll move to item E2. The Community Engagement Ad Hoc Committee will now provide us with an update.
That may be me.
Yeah, I was just going to chime in. I believe that we filmed some capacity of a advertisement, if you will, for our upcoming housing resource fair. So I believe staff might have a little bit more color to give to that, and some details as to when to expect that and what that event will entail.
Yes, so staff, me, and Vice Chair Schweitzer, we were able to film a video advert for the fair right here in this event hall at Belhaven Community Campus. So apparently it has now been posted on social media accounts like Facebook. It'll be coming online for Instagram on Friday, just to kind of give some information about what people can find at the fair, date, time, location, all of that good stuff. So if anyone's interested, you can check our city social media accounts out and take a look at the advert. But we're very much looking forward to the fair. It will be next Saturday right here in Belhaven Community Campus from 1 to 4. So please come out and enjoy all of the resources that we'll have available.
Awesome. Let's move to E3, future agenda items. Do we have any recommendations for future agenda items?
I was just wondering if we could go back, because I have a question on the
absolutely.
resource.
We'll go back to E2.
Sorry. So we talked, how do we make sure that that we can attend and not violate the Brown Act on the resource?
Yeah, I'm the direct contact for the fair. So if you are interested in attending, just please let me know. And then we can kind of structure you guys to come in at different times, stay till till a time, and then you have to leave. So we're not violating Brown Act. But if you are interested, just give me a call or email me and I will let you know when you'll be able to come.
Sounds like we want to try and pick our times, sort of, right?
Yeah, we'll need to stagger, especially depending on how many of you are interested. If it's one or two, that's one thing, but over anything over four or more, we would need to make sure that we stagger your time there.
Any other questions or comments on E2 before we move on? Okay, seeing none, let's move to E3. Do we have any recommendations for future agenda items? Awesome. Sounds like no. So we'll move to E4, staff updates and announcements. Does staff have any updates or announcements?
Just a few announcements. First, May is Affordable Housing Month. So happy Affordable Housing Month to all. And I suggest the Housing Leadership Council has a calendar of events that you may be interested in learning more about. They're having an affordable housing tour, and such as tomorrow, the new department is going to give an introduction via Zoom virtually. So there are a number of events. I suggest maybe you might want SV at home. But many are virtual. So if you are interested in certain affordable housing topics, I suggest you look at those two calendars. Also, this Thursday is the developer open house for the parking lots, and the city clerk has posted a meeting notice for all the commissions. So if you wish to attend, the chosen developers will be their designs for the park. That is happening on Thursday, 5:30 to 7, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but it is in the evening. And then, as Ariana mentioned, May 16th, we're having our Housing and Neighborhood Resource Fair, and we're getting quite the number of different organizations who would like to participate. And that's from 1 to 4 on the 16th.
And I wanted to confirm, if I understood correctly, because the event tomorrow is noticed, we don't have to stagger our appearances if we all want to attend?
Not for the May 7th event. Correct. No
Okay.
need to stagger.
And if I may just chime in on that, perhaps if there's a desire of some of the commission to attend our housing resource fair, if staff could look into agendizing that as a special meeting so we don't have to stagger, that would be something I would recommend to look into.
Sure, that's fine.
Are there any further comments or questions on item E4? All right, seeing none, I will adjourn the meeting at 7:43.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Switzer.